Good day to each and everyone. I am MATCHICA, and for today, we are going to discuss the chapter 9, which is the types, characteristic, and identifications of learners with difficulty walking and moving. For our introduction, this chapter describes the various types of conditions which results to learners having difficulty walking and moving. It focuses on physical disabilities, neurological disorders, and other health impairments. It covers how these conditions affect learners, and suggested accommodations and classroom adaptations are also provided. Gross motor developmental milestones are also discussed, which could aid functional screening for these conditions. Lastly, a checklist that can be used by teachers in identifying learners with difficulty walking and moving is given, and formal ways in which these conditions are screened and diagnosed are described. So this chapter provides a comprehensive overview of the types, characteristics, and identifications of learners who experience difficulties with walking and movement. It emphasizes the importance of understanding these conditions to facilitate appropriate accommodation and adaptations in educational settings. So let's start discussing about the learners with difficulty walking and moving. First, the language that we use in describing learners could reflect and shape the way we think about them. For instance, let us look at the difference between the child with disability and disabled child according to Fact 2003. So when we say child with disability, this implies that the child has disability. So we are just referring to the disability of the child. On the other hand, when we say disabled child, this could imply that this child is disabled by the circumstances, including people's attitude and resources, rather than one's physical disabilities. So as you can see below, there's a table that explains try to avoid and what should we use words. So these are the handicapping words to avoid and to use instead. So in this table, it discusses the impact of language on our perceptions of learners with disabilities. The words we use to describe these learners influence how we think about them and how we interact with and support them. The language used to describe learners with disabilities also influence their self-perceptions. Like for example, this side here, the handicapping words that we should avoid. So these are the words that are negative language. And the impact to the learners with disabilities in here will make them lower their self-esteem or isolate themselves. And for this side here, which is the words that should be used, these are the positive language, and it fosters the self-confidence and resilience to the child with disability. In this chapter, we will discuss learners with difficulty walking and moving, which include learners with physical disabilities, neuromotor impairments, other health impairments. So let's start with the physical disabilities. So physical disabilities is a label given to a vast range of difficulties that have to do with physical functioning. It is a continuum wherein one end includes children with minor motor problems, and at the other end are children with very little control over their physical functioning. These are according to Fox 2003. So physical disability isn't a single condition, it's a range of impairments. The severity varies greatly. At one end, children might have minor motor skills difficulties, like slight clumsiness. At the other extreme, children may have very limited control over their bodies. The wide range highlights the needs for individual supports and intervention. So next, according to Howard 2017, physical disability or orthopedic impairments could be caused by congenital anomaly, including clubfoot impairments caused by disease such as bone tuberculosis, and impairments from other causes such as cerebral palsy, amputations, and fractures or burns. So physical difficulties turn into a disability if it prevents a person, thus disabling one, from participating in society in general and school in particular. Physical disability as a wide-ranging set of conditions impacting physical functions originating from various causes and only becoming a disability when it prevents full participation in society and education. The severity and impact of the disabling are not solely determined by the physical conditions but also by the environment and available support. So next, let's discuss about the neuromotor impairments. So according to Howard 2017, neuromotor impairments involves the central nervous system, which affects one's ability to move, use, feel, or control certain body parts. Example, we have the cerebral palsy. So, neuromotor impairments is a condition that affects the central nervous system, specifically the brain and spinal cord. These disruptions in the nervous system's functions can lead to a difficulties with movement, coordination, sensations, and control over certain body parts. So we have the example here, the cerebral palsy. So do you know what is the cerebral palsy? So, a cerebral palsy, a group of disorders affecting movements and postures, resulting from brain damage during development. So, it can lead to a various movements challenges, including spasticity, which is the muscle stiffness, and ataxia, which is lack of coordination. And next, the other health impairments. So, other health impairments refers to a condition of changing limited strength, vitality, or alertness, which could limit one's participation in education. So, this category includes a variety of health conditions that may not primarily affect physical movement but still significantly impact a learner's abilities to engage fully in educational activities. This could be a chronic, which is long-lasting and most often permanent conditions that could result to a special education. Again, chronic conditions is a long-lasting conditions such as asthma, diabetes, epilepsy, and heart conditions that can lead to a fatigue, reduced stamina, and other limitations. So next, acute. A conditions of limited durations but nevertheless could produce severe debilitating symptoms. So acute conditions, temporary health issues that can cause significant impairments during their duration, such as severe infections or injuries. Next, health problems, which has asthma, attention deficit disorder, or ADD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, which ADHD, diabetes, epilepsy, heart conditions, among others, which negatively affects one's school's performance. So next, let's discuss the typical and atypical development of gross motor skills or motor physical skills. So let's recap first what is typical and atypical development. So when we say typical development, this is something that is common, expected, or normal within a particular group or situation in the developmental process, while the atypical development, this is something that is unusual, unexpected, delayed, or different from the normal development of a child. So when we say gross motor physical skills are those which require whole body movement. These involve the large muscles of the body and are used to perform everyday functions including standing, walking, running, and sitting upright as well as eye-hand coordination skills. So gross motor skills requiring whole body movement, and large muscles engagements are crucial for everyday functions like walking, running, and sitting. So for us to be able to tell whether a child's gross motor functions are developing typically, it is important to take note of the gross motor developmental milestone identified below, and it will discussed by the next reporter, so which provide a functional screening of developmental skills per age group according to Kids Sense ND. And for the conclusions of my overall topic, understanding the types and characteristics of mobility impairments is crucial for educators to provide effective support by implementing appropriate accommodations and fostering an inclusive environment. Educators can help learners with mobility challenges participate fully in their educational experiences, promoting independence and confidence. That would be all for my report. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon po, Ma'am Taronga. I am NURZAINA K. SALIM. Today, I will discuss and explain the gross motor developmental milestones. But before that, let us first define on what is gross motor. We all know that gross motor or physical skills are those which require whole body movement. This involves the large muscles of the body and are used to perform everyday functions including standing, walking, running, and sitting upright, as well as eye-hand coordination skills. For us to be able to tell whether a child's gross motor functions are developing typically, it is important to take note of the gross motor developmental milestones identified in the table. This table provides a functional screening of developmental skills per age group. Failure to display the given functions at the expected time could indicate problems in which mobility could be affected and wherein difficulty walking and moving could be experienced. So as you can see in the first column, these are the children aged 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 18 months, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years. While in the second column of the table, it outlines the expected developmental achievements of the children. Furthermore, the third column of the table also lists potential implications if a child doesn't reach the said milestones, such as delayed play skills, poor muscle development, or difficulties in interacting with their environment. Essentially, it is a guide to identify potential development delays in the gross motor skills. Now, let's move on to the types and causes of health impairments, physical disabilities, and neurological conditions. So, the following are the common types and causes of health impairments, physical disabilities, and neurological conditions by Hayward, 2017. First we have is the epilepsy. It is considered as health impairment at the same time neurological condition. When we say electrical discharge, it is the abnormal or uncontrolled electrical activity in the brain, known as seizures. Seizures are uncontrolled disturbances of electricity in the brain. People who experience seizures, their movements, feelings, or behavior may change unconsciously when this occurs. Next we have is the cerebral palsy, which is considered as physical disability. It is a group of disorders affecting movement and posture. It is caused by damage to or abnormal development of the brain, usually before birth. Symptoms vary widely from mild, example slight awkwardness in walking, to severe, which require a lifelong care. Cerebral palsy is non-progressive, meaning it doesn't worsen over time, though symptoms may change. There is no cure, but treatments can improve function. Now we have is the infections of the brain or central nervous system, which is considered as health impairment. So these infections caused by bacteria, viruses, fungi, or other pathogens can lead to conditions like meningitis or inflammation of the brain and spinal cord membranes. Can also lead to encephalitis or brain inflammation. Symptoms vary depending on the pathogen and the severity of the infection, but can include fever, headache, stiff neck, confusion, weakness, and seizures. Prompt diagnosis and treatment is crucial. Next is the metabolic disorders. Metabolic disorders affecting the brain are a broad category. They involve disruptions in the body's chemical process, impacting brain function. These disorders can cause a range of neurological symptoms, depending on the specific condition. Now we have is also the lesion due to scar tissue from a head injury. So brain scar tissue, also called gliosis, forms after brain injury. This scar tissue disrupts normal brain function, potentially leading to cognitive, motor, or emotional problems. The severity depends on the location and extent of the injury. High fever. While not a condition itself, a high fever can indicate an underlying infection, including those affecting the brain. High fever can damage brain cells if prolonged or very high. Next is the interruption in blood supply to the brain, or also called as stroke. A stroke occurs when blood flow to the part of the brain is interrupted, causing brain cells to die. There are two main types, which first is the ischemic stroke due to blood clot, and hemorrhagic stroke, which is due to bleeding. Symptoms include sudden weakness, numbness, vision problems, and speech difficulties. Immediate medical attention is very important. Next is the shaken baby syndrome. Shaken baby syndrome is a serious form of child abuse resulting from violently shaking a baby or a toddler. This causes brain damage due to bleeding and swelling. Symptoms may include irritability, breathing problems, vomiting, and seizures. Shaken baby syndrome can lead to lifelong disabilities or death. Among the conditions that can trigger seizures are fatigue, excitement, anger, surprise, hyperventilation, hormonal changes, withdrawal from alcohol or drugs, and exposure to certain patterns of light, sound, or touch. Although epilepsy can occur at any stage in life, it is most common to develop during childhood. Generalized tonic-clonic seizure or grand mal seizure. The most common, wherein muscles become stiff and one loses consciousness and falls to the floor. This involves violent shaking of the body while muscles contract and relax alternately. Next is the absence seizure or petit mal. This is considered as less severe, although it occurs more frequently. It involves loss of consciousness lasting from a few seconds to a half or minute or so. One may stay blankly, flutter or blink, grow pale, and drop whatever one is holding, as if daydreaming or not listening. It is possible for one to be unaware of this seizure. Complex partial seizure or psychomotor seizure manifests as a brief period of inappropriate or purposeless activity. For instance, smacking one's lips, walking aimlessly, or shouting. Next is the simple partial seizure, which involves sudden jerking motion while consciousness is retained. One may experience an aura or a warning sensation before the seizure occurs. Asthma. An asthma attack is usually caused by allergens, such as pollen or certain foods, irritants such as cigarette smoke, exercise, or emotional stress. During an asthma attack, the airways in the lungs narrow, and the resistance in the air flow in and out of the lungs increases. Cerebral palsy. It is a permanent condition that results from having a lesion in the brain or abnormality in the brain growth. Diseases that can affect the developing brain can result in cerebral palsy. Among the symptoms of cerebral palsy are disturbance in voluntary motor functions such as paralysis, extreme weakness, and lack of coordination. So, involuntary convulsions and other motor disorders. An individual who has cerebral palsy may lose control over one's arms, legs, or speech. Now, let's move on to the types of cerebral palsy. So, first we have is monoplegia. This affects one limb, usually on the arm. Hemiplegia, which affects one side of the body, including arm, leg, and trunk. Diplegia affects symmetrical of the body, such as the legs or arms. Next is the quadriplegia, affects all four limbs. While triplegia affects three limbs. Next is paraplegia, only legs are impaired. While double hemiplegia primarily involves the arms with less severe involvement of the legs. Next we have is the spinal bifida. It is the most common neural tube defect, which refers to congenital malformations of the brain, spinal cord, or vertebrae. Lastly is the muscular dystrophy. It is a group of inherited diseases marked by progressive atrophy or wasting away of the body's muscles. That's all for my part. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Thank you.
So when we say dystrophy, it refers to the degeneration of tissues due to disease or malnutrition, which is often with hereditary component. So we have here the first types of dystrophy, which are the spinal cord injuries. So it refers that these are usually caused by lesions due to a penetrating block and injury, stretching of the vertebral column, fracture of the vertebrae, or compression which present at the spinal cord. So among the common causes of spinal cord injuries are motor vehicle, accidents, falls, acts of violence, and sports. Therefore, students who have spinal cord injuries usually need the use of wheelchairs for mobility. Motorized wheelchairs are best for those with quadriplegia, while self-propelled wheelchairs are suggested for those with use of wheelchair paraplegia. So people with SCI or the spinal cord injuries may need ongoing care and support to manage their condition and maintain their independence. This may include assistive devices, adaptive equipment, and of course the access to specialized healthcare services. So moving forward to the classification of physical disabilities. As we all understand that physical disabilities could of course limit a person's ability to walk and move. Classification of physical disabilities include physiological, functional, and mobility impairments. This can be categorized according to whether they are fluctuating or intermittent, chronic, progressive, or stable, ROMA, visible or invisible. In terms of pain experience, some involve extreme pain, some less, while some do not involve pain at all. So we have here examples of progressive conditions that get even worse over time but can fluctuate. First, we have the multiple sclerosis, which is for neurological deterioration dystrophy. Second, we have the muscular dystrophy that belongs to the muscular disorder. And of course, the third, we have the chronic arthritis, which belongs to inflammation of the joints. Next, we have the examples of non-progressive conditions that remain stable. First, we have the cerebral palsy, which is for neurological condition. Second, we have the spina bifida for congenital malformation of the spinal cord. And of course, the spinal cord injury for neurological damage which resulting from trauma. Examples of disabilities that are non-progressive but can fluctuate. First, we have the fibromyalgia for chronic pain condition and chronic fatigue syndrome for chronic fatigue condition. And finally, we are down with the last parts of this discussion. We have the etiology of mobility impairment. There are many types of mobility impairment that limit an individual's ability to walk and move around, and causes of which vary. Some of these conditions are best present at birth, while some are due to illness or physical injury. In terms of severity, mobility impairment could range from limitations in stamina to paralysis. Some mobility impairments are due to spinal cord injury, which depending on which area is being damaged. Learners with quadriplegia have loss of function in their arms, legs, and trunk, and often needed the use of motorized wheelchairs. Learners with paraplegia, on the other hand, have loss of function in their lower extremities and lower trunk. These learners could use a manual wheelchair and could fully move their arms and hands. So I hope you will get the difference between this. Mobility impairments could also have other causes besides spinal cord damage. It could be due to amputation, in which one or more limbs are removed because of trauma, sun trauma, malignancies, or other conditions. It could also be due to arthritis, in which there is an inflammation of body joints, which causes pain, swelling, and difficulty with mobility. Back disorder could also cause difficulty on the student to perform actions such as sitting, standing, walking, bending, or carrying objects. It could be due to degenerative disc disease, scoliosis, or herniated disc. Students with cerebral palsy have damage to the brain that occurs before or shortly after birth. Motor dysfunctions include difficulty of walking, lack of muscle coordination, spasms, as well as difficulty with speech. Neuromuscular disorders refer to a wide range of conditions, including muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, and ataxia that lead to degeneration and atrophy of muscular or nerve tissues. Fibromyalgia is a condition of rheumatism in soft tissues or muscles that causes constant muscular and ligament pain, according to University of Illinois. Finally, the characteristics of learners with difficulty moving and walking. Learners with difficulty walking and moving due to varying health impairments, physical disabilities, and neurological conditions show wide diversity in characteristics. While some excel academically, many perform below grade level. Coping emotionally is often challenging for those with chronic conditions. And that concludes my discussion for Chapter 9. Once again, I am Vicent Rojas, proud from BSED English 1A. Thank you for watching and listening.
Hello everyone. Today I will explain an important idea of etiology of mobility, characteristics, and trends and issues in teaching learners. First, with the etiology of mobility impairment. Mobility impairment can be caused by birth conditions, illness, or injuries. Common causes include spinal cord injuries, cerebral palsy, arthritis, amputations, and neuromuscular disorders like muscular dystrophy. The full severity can range from mild movement issues to full paralysis. Example, a student was born with cerebral palsy, so they have trouble walking and need a wheelchair. So next, we have the characteristics of learners with difficulty walking and moving. So learners with mobility issues vary greatly. Some perform well in school, but may struggle academically and emotionally due to their physical limitations and health conditions. Like for example, a student with physical disability finds it hard to focus in class because they often feel tired and emotional. So next we have the characteristics of learners with difficulty walking and moving. These students often need more space in the classroom and may have trouble using regular chairs and tables, so may need special transportation to get to school. They may also struggle with writing for long periods or have difficulty processing and completing assignments or exams due to physical limitations. Like for example, a student in wheelchair can't write for a long time, so the teacher lets them use a voice app to answer tests. So next we have the additional needs and suggested accommodations. Students may get tired easily, have trouble finishing tasks on time, or need more time to access materials in formats they can use with assistive devices. To support them, teachers should make the classroom accessible, give extra time for tasks, offer oral tests, and allow flexible schedules. Including them in group work and school activities is also important for their full participation. Like for example, a student gets tired quickly, so the teacher gives more time for exams and fewer tests in 1 week. So,
Good day to each and everyone. I am ALFRANCIS EMPERADO, and today we'll discuss about the parents' experiences in enabling participation of children with physical disabilities. So, let's start. The pursuit of inclusive education aims to empower learners with disabilities, fostering their participation not only within the school setting but also within the broader context of home and community. Parents play a pivotal role in achieving this goal, and understanding their experiences is crucial. A study by Peace Corps et al. 2016 explored parental involvement, examining their thoughts, feelings, and concerns regarding their children's participation across various environments. Through in-depth interviews, the study illuminated the multifaceted challenges and triumphs experienced by parents in enabling their children's participation. The findings revealed a complex interplay of factors influencing parental experiences. A significant theme emerged concerning the systemic barriers encountered by parents. This included navigating complex bureaucratic processes, grappling with inadequate laws and regulations, and facing a lack of clear guidelines and support systems. Many parents express frustration and disappointment stemming from bureaucratic hurdles and a perceived lack of understanding from educational and societal institutions. Furthermore, this study highlighted the impact of the physical and social environment on children's participation. Parents frequently describe challenges related to accessibility both in terms of physical infrastructure such as lack of ramps, inadequate transportation, and social attitude such as prejudice, exclusion. The lack of inclusive leisure activities and opportunities of social interaction outside of school was another significant concern. Parents felt a profound sense of responsibility to create opportunities for their children, often shouldering the burden of finding and organizing activities independently. The emotional toll of parents was also evident. May express feelings of isolation, frustration, and disappointment stemming from misunderstanding, lack of support, and a constant struggle to advocate for their children's needs. The weights of navigating complex systems, combating societal barriers, and ensuring their children's participation in all aspects of life place a considerable strain on parents. They often felt the need for increased support, both practical and emotional, to effectively fulfill their role um, to as advocate and facilitator of children's participation. The study findings underscore the importance of extending inclusive education beyond the school walls. To truly empower children with physical disabilities, and collaborative effort is required involving parents, educators, policymakers, and community members. This collaboration should focus on addressing systemic barriers, improving accessibility, promoting inclusive leisure opportunities, and providing comprehensive support to parents. By acknowledging and addressing the challenges faced by parents, we can create a more inclusive and supportive environment for children with physical disabilities, enabling them to participate fully to their communities. So that's all for my topic. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am SHERHAN JACINTO from BSED English 1A, and now I will discussing to you the areas of physical difficulties. So now, what is physical difficulties? So physical difficulties encompasses a wide range of conditions affecting an individual ability to move, perform daily tasks, or experience to the world. These difficulties can stem from various causes including injuries, illness, or congenital condition. Example including limitation in mobility, dexterity, or stamina, as well as the impairment in vision, hearing, and communication. And now I will discuss the areas of physical difficulties in speech. The problem with articulation of speech. Some difficulties of speech. Unable able to understand speech. In addition, it helps to have the following information. So on this chapter, we can assess or identify if the student have areas of physical difficulties. In this chart, you can see there's a various question about it. The student have or not the physical difficulties.
Good day to each and everyone. I am teacher Nicole MATCHICA, and for today we are going to discuss the chapter 10, which is the principles and strategies of teaching and designing IEP for learners with difficulty walking and moving. So for our introduction, learners with difficulty walking and moving have varied educational needs, and most of these needs relate to physical access, access to a lack of technological aids, manipulations of equipment, classroom and school program participation, limited workstations, proper seating accommodations, and not meeting class schedules due to timely travel. So these learners may get affected through course requirements not suitable to the abilities, limited time to move between venues, tiredness from transporting to places inaccessible facilitate in comfort rooms. So these learners may get affected through course requirements not suitable to their abilities, limited time to move between venues, tiredness from transporting to places, inaccessible facilities in comfort rooms, limited pathway space, inaccessible ramps, or lack of unsuitable desks for writing, frequent absence due to hospitalizations, and fewer opportunities to interact with classmates. So learners with difficulty walking and moving face unique challenges in educational settings, necessitating tailored approaches through individualized education programs or IEPs. This chapter outlines the principles and strategies for teaching and designing effective IEP for these learners, focusing on their specific needs, accommodations, modifications, and role of various health professionals involved in their education. Some learners in the inclusive classroom may fully access education with minimal accommodation and modification. Accommodations are adjustments made in the learning environment that allow students to complete the same work as their peers without altering the fundamental requirements of the task. For instance, a student who has difficulty walking may be provided with extended time to move between classes or the options to use a wheelchair. So these adjustments do not change the nature of the work. They simply allow the students to access the same curriculum as their peers. Modification, on the other hand, involves changes to the curriculum of or learning expectations. This might include simplifying assignment or providing alternative tasks that are more suited to the learner's ability. For instance, if a children of or a student cannot participate in a physical education class due to the mobility issues, they might be assigned to a project on sport history instead of participating in physical activities. So next, let's discuss about the health professionals. Since learners with difficulty walking and moving have complex needs, their IEP team consists of varied professionals to assist them in their education and health requirements. Below are two important IEP members for these learners. So first, we have the physical therapists or the PTs. These are licensed professionals that use treatment techniques to help promote mobility, reduce pain, restore functions, and prevent further disabilities of learners with difficulty walking and moving. So the PTs motivate learners to be independent as possible and suggest sitting positions and classroom activities, exercises, or programs that both learners with and without disability can do. So the PTs are licensed professionals who focus on improving mobility and functions. They employ various techniques to help learners. The PTs encourage students to engage in activities that foster self-sufficiency, such as suggesting appropriate seating arrangements or classroom activities that accommodate their mobility needs. They implement exercises that not only alleviate pain but also enhance physical capabilities, ensuring that students can participate in both academic and extracurricular activities. So next, the occupational therapists or OTs. So these professionals determine the learner's goals in life and help them perform daily activities such as self-help, employment, recreations, communication, and aspect of daily living. Example, taking a bath, hygiene, eating to reach their goals. Autists specialize in helping students achieve their personal and academic goals by enhancing their ability to perform daily tasks. Their contributions include autists work on improving fine motor skills through practical activities like typing or baking, which are essentials for academic success and daily living. So they collaborate with learners to establish realistic goals related to self-help, employment, and recreational activities, ensuring that these goals are aligned with the students' aspirations and capabilities. So next we have other specialists that give related services to these learners include speech language pathologists or SLPs, adapted physical educators, recreation therapists, school nurses, prosthetics, orientations and mobility specialists, and counselors. So speech language pathologists or SLPs, these assist with communication skills. Adapted physical educations provide modified physical education programs. Recreational therapies, these facilitate inclusive recreational activities. School nurses, they address health-related needs. Orientations and mobility specialists, they help with navigations and spatial awareness. Counselors, the counselors help support emotional and social development. For the conclusions of my overall topic, creating effective IEPs for learners with difficulty walking and moving requires a comprehensive understanding of their unique challenges and collaborative efforts of a multidisciplinary team. By distinguishing between accommodations and modifications and leveraging the expertise of health professionals, educators can provide a supportive learning environment that promotes accessibility, independence, and academic success for all students. That would be all for my report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am NURZAINA SALIM. And for this video, I will discuss the topic about assistive technology. Assistive technology. These are both assistive devices, low-tech and high-tech, and services that are used to develop, increase, and maintain mobility and daily performance of learners with physical disabilities. This report examines assistive technologies and inclusive classroom strategies designed to support learners with physical disabilities. The goal is to create a learning environment where all students can participate fully and equitably. First example we have is the mobility. Mobility varies with each person. Some can access their devices easily while others cannot. Examples of assistive technologies that help learners with limited mobility. First we have is the mouth stick. This is a device manipulated with mouth that allows users to control input. Second is head 1. This is a device similar to mouth stick, except that the head manipulates it. Other mobility aids include scooters, walkers, canes, crutches, and orthotic devices. Communication. These are aids used to communicate either in person or online. Examples are, first we have is the speech recognition software. This is a software that creates text and navigates online by voice commands, usually used by learners with limited mobility. Second is the speech generating device. This is a standalone device or software that is installed in tablets or phones, where users who are not able to speak on their own can communicate to others. In conclusion, the effective integration of assistive technologies and inclusive practices is very important for fostering a truly equitable learning environment. These strategies empower students with physical disabilities to participate fully in all aspects of school life, promoting academic success and social inclusion. A proactive approach that anticipates and addresses individual needs is paramount. Regular evaluation and adaptation of these strategies are essential to ensure ongoing effectiveness and responsiveness to the evolving needs of students. All for my part, I hope you learned something from my video. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. This is Vicent Rojas once again from BSED English 1A. And I will be discussing about, for my part, as for the chapter 10, is all about inclusive classroom approaches. Some learners with severe impairments are attended in homebound or hospital or with education programs, regarded as the most restrictive placements, while others are in special classes with smaller sizes, more adapted equipment, and easier access to professional services. The least restrictive environment, where there is more interaction with learners without disabilities, is of course the regular classroom. Here are some ways in handling learners with physical disabilities in the regular classroom. Of course, as aspiring educators, we are responsible for being effective in order for us to be well molded in our classroom principles. We have first to observe the learners with physical disabilities in the classroom and ask if any assistance if needed. Offer help if needed, but don't assume that they always prefer to have other support. Second, we have to use accurate and sensitive terminologies in the classroom as the learners, with or without disabilities, learn from the teachers' knowledge and attitudes. Next, we have to use simulation and role-playing activities where able learners are given opportunities to use wheelchairs and other assistive devices to help raise awareness of some barriers their classmates are facing. Next, when conversing, make eye contact, smile, and make sure that your head is at or below the eye level of the learner using wheelchair. Sit or crouch near the learner, but do not lean on their shoulders to avoid invading their personal space. Next, we have to make sure that reasonable in-between breaks are given to these learners for travel time purposes. Plan classes schedules before the school year starts so as to minimize travel time and distance between classes. To allow learners who have difficulties in writing to record class lectures or to have note takers. Create also a test accommodations in the form of extra time or the use of word processor to involve learners with arm and dexterity problems in laboratory classes and pair word processor. In this way, learners with disabilities can learn and are actively involved except on physically manipulating laboratory materials. And finally, we have to work with learners with physical and health impairments to arrange for laboratory materials, appropriate time for completion of class assignments. So with that, inclusive classroom benefit all learners by fostering empathy, collaboration, and of course, diverse perspectives. They will definitely cater to individual needs, maximizing potential for all students regardless of the differences and of course, regardless of the abilities. With that, once again, this is Vicent Rojas, and this concludes my part of the classroom inclusive approaches. Thank you for listening.
Next, you have the trends and issues in teaching learners. So, teachers' thought and feelings affect how they include students with physical disabilities. These are shaped by their experiences, school, and culture. Students with physical disabilities can be included in different ways, in the same school but separate, together during breaks, or in the same class. Inclusion depends on each child's needs. So that is for my topic.
Now I will discussing to you the last chapter, the chapter 10, the parents' experience of enabling the participation of children with physical disability. Indeed, the goal of inclusive education is able to participation of learning with disabilities, gift and talent, not only in school but also in the wider context of home and community. The parents play a very important in it throughout study by Bishop College 2016. It looked the role of parents in terms of participation in various contexts, including the school, home, and community. This involves the strength thoughts, feeling, concern, reflecting their action, challenges, needs, and enable the children's participation in this context. Finding the deaf interview revealed among the parents' major concerns are those related system law, regulation, experience, thoughts about the physical and social environment, and experience and feeling finding or unable an activity. Most of the time, parents are disappointed from being misunderstood, from dealing with complexity of system, from the inheritance of being participation of children by social and physical environment, and from lack of leisure activities of their children. This result implies that inclusive education goes beyond the school, and the parent must be encouraged to increase their involvement when it comes to inclusive education. And that's the end of my discussion.